Okay. So, in summary, what we're trying to do is bring together different fields that haven't been brought necessarily together before. So we're looking at literacy in the wider sense, so not only literacy in first language but across languages. We're looking at subject development, conceptual development, we're looking at language development, and these fields haven't easily been brought together before, and I think this is where our added value is enabling a more holistic concept of progression, learning progression in meaning making is coming from. But what we're hoping to do is to provide very concrete examples of how this applies to classroom practice.
And what is the contribution of the outside experts so far, and what are we looking for in the future?
When a small group of people share ideas, those ideas begin to evolve, and it was very important for us to get a steer from externals so that they could actually ask us some really difficult and some really fundamental questions that sometimes when you're working as part of a smaller group you just take as being a shared understanding. And what for me has been really crucial in the development of the model is the way that we articulate it, and having opportunities to actually articulate the underlying theories and concepts so that we arrive at a shared understanding that is also going to be shared and understood by others is absolutely critical, because there's no point in us coming up with some highly theoretical model which is only comprehensible by a very small group of people. So the experts were able to bring with them their independent experiences and so on, so that actually over a period of time, the more articulation, the more discussion that we had, the reflection and so on, has actually enabled us now to have a confidence and a reference point really of where the model is going. In particular, one of the areas that I found very interesting is that I think we can situate this in a relatively growing field called educational linguistics, as opposed to just simply applied linguistics. And I think educational linguistics is really helpful because there it's clearly the merger of pedagogic theory and linguistic theory brought together. And I think this is what is enabling us now to move the thinking forward. So what with the concept of educational linguistics and the articulation with a range of very different experts, I think the model is starting to develop and to grow in such a way that we'll be at a point where very practical applications from it can now take place.
And the last question is, how have you arrived at this model, and what was the process?
I think the model started to be arrived at by a growing understanding that simply looking at content and language was not enough, that there were huge gaps in what we were doing, and that whilst teachers and learners were actually working in Coyle contexts, many times very successfully, there were gaps, and one of the really big gaps was to do with monitoring progression, because what we must have as educators is a notion that progression in learning, and here I think we're taking the sense of learning in terms of meaning making, has got to be, as it develops over time, but that there are key milestones that exist in an individual which enable the teachers to understand that progression is actually happening. Those gaps were there, and there was a feeling that there wasn't enough detail in terms of the advice that was being given to teachers. So, for example, it's generally acknowledged that, of course, the language will need scaffolding in any Coyle setting. But exactly what the nature of that scaffolding is and the way it relates to the subject discipline that's being taught has never been easily explained or easily experimented. And I think that's where we're going.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.